Well, here's something I haven't reviewed before. A collapsible baton, sometimes called a telescope baton or a police baton. And in this case, we're looking at the Monadnock AutoLock. Okay, this one is their 22-inch model. They make it in a, I think it's 16 or 17 inch, a 22-inch, and a 26-inch version. But this one is the one that I like. It's right there in the middle, gives a good amount of reach. And this is something I've actually been incorporating into my everyday carry as an alternative to a large fixed blade knife. Now, the reason why is kind of twofold. For one, it's actually more compact to carry on the belt versus a large fixed blade. For two, it draws less attention than a large fixed blade. And for three, it provides me with a less lethal means, I'm not going to say non-lethal, but a less lethal means of self-defense that also ends up giving me a bit more reach. How much more reach? Well, deploying this thing, I can't even fully get it on camera, okay? Now let's take one of the larger knives I would carry, something like this cold steel Laredo Bowie. This is a big knife, but putting it butt to butt with this baton, see if I can show this. The difference in reach is substantial. As big of a knife as this is, it still doesn't provide me with as much distance as this baton, okay? And the same would be true even if I went for the 16-inch or 17-inch. I forget exactly how they do it. With Monadnocks, it's a little bit different versus ASPs because the power safety tip adds a little bit of length on there. So yeah, the reach is a big deal. The ability to be less lethal with it, and I am actually properly trained on how to use these. I know the strike zones, I know the footwork that goes into it, how to swing with it to get the most momentum and power into the swing, so on and so forth. It is something that I was educated on professionally, so I do feel comfortable using them. But I like the fact that it is a less lethal option if I need it to be, while being arguably equally lethal if I need it to be. And it all comes down to the difference in where to strike. Not going to go over all that here. I'm not an expert. I just received the basic training and education on how to use it, supplemented it with a little bit of YouTube tutorial to see if there was anything new that I could learn there, which is where I learned certain holds and pressure locks or joint locks that you could do with them, stuff like that. And that is the thing that I think a lot of reviews don't talk about with batons, is that it's not just a striking weapon. They can be used for pushing someone back to maintain distance. Okay, holding it just like so and pushing back, it gives leverage to get someone away from you. You can get somebody on their elbow or shoulder or their neck, it's hard to really show, and lock them into place, twist their arms, all sorts of different things you can do with these to use them in a very non-lethal means that's going to cause little to no serious long-term harm. If you need to go a little bit more harmful, yeah, strike them about the arms and legs. If, say, someone does have a knife, okay, you're in a knife fight, and they got, I don't know, something about the size of this leather neck here, right? Okay, which, by the way, also demonstrates the reach difference. And they're coming forward on a thrust, or even just trying to cut at you. Because of the additional distance you have with something like this, if you can strike them on their wrist while they're making that strike, a good hit is going to break their wrist. Straight up, it's going to break their wrist. And even if you don't, even if you hit them in the forearm, you hit them in the elbow, you hit them in the bicep, the pain alone is likely going to be enough to either make them want to stop fighting or to retreat entirely. I don't know why I'm continuing to show the knife. That'll get its own video at some point. So the argument for non-lethal strikes comes from stuff like that, hitting somebody in the wrist, the forearm, the bicep, the thigh, the knee, whatever. Okay, so that's another reason I like incorporating this into my everyday carry as a defense weapon. And of course, if I need it to be more lethal, head, neck, spine, places like that. Now that's all very general information about a baton. What about this one in particular? Well, the reason why I like this one is it has a lot of features that aren't common on the more, they're not seen as much on the more common friction locks, okay? And what I mean by that is most batons that you're probably familiar with, a lot of cheaper ones, the no-name Chinese ones, maybe you got something a little bit better like the Cold Steel or SOG or Schrade or Smith & Wesson, one of those batons, which are decent. They're not bad. You'd whip them out, and in order to close it, you had to go bashing it on the pavement, okay? This is not that. This is what Monadnock calls their AutoLock, so you push this button on the end, and then that allows you to close it up without having to bash it into anything. Additionally, you can just as easily open it without having to whip it out at all for a less intimidating deployment, if that's what you're going for. Okay, so I like that. I like the versatility of that. I like how it's going to allow me to put less wear and tear on this baton versus something cheaper. Is it the only thing that does this? No. ASP or ASP has their own batons that do this. Minoe has their batons that do this. NEX has batons that do this. And Smith & Wesson actually has a higher end baton that does the same exact kind of thing. It's a different mechanism inside, but it's the same general idea overall. All that said, I'll warn you right now that these Monadnocks need the most maintenance out of any of those options I just listed, okay? So you'd unscrew this end cap here. I'm not going to fully disassemble this, but you would unscrew this, and you'd get inside, and you would lubricate it with some kind of oil or grease. And that's going to ensure that you have a baton that is easy to close, easy to open, and locks up every time. If you don't, and I have had this happen with carrying this one, sometimes, just like that, you see that? It didn't fully lock open because I haven't lubed this in a couple of weeks. Okay, a good deployment, it'll still lock, but it should be locking every time. Okay, the fact that it can sometimes not is a sign that this needs a little bit of maintenance. I need to go in here and grease this. I've also had the opposite happen to where I can't get this upper section specifically to close. I'll depress the button and, you know, it'll go in that far, but it won't want to go past that. And the solution to that every time is the same thing. Unscrew this, properly lubricate it, fiddle with it, close it, deploy it a few more times, get it all worked into the mechanism, you're good to go. But it is a higher maintenance baton than its equivalent from a company like ASP, okay? So, bit of a downside there, potentially. The length on this one closed, okay, or the handle length is 10 inches long. The material of the shaft is 4130 alloyed steel. Okay, so 4130 and 4140 are pretty much the industry standard. They're pretty much all you'd like to see, at least them, or a European or Chinese equivalent would be acceptable. And the reason why is we're talking about a striking weapon. If you're coming into contact with someone's arm, someone's leg, or maybe a window, if you're in law enforcement and you're using this to break someone's window, which the power safety tip isn't great for that, but no big deal. Just hold it on the other end and use the metal end of this handle. You'll do just as good a job with it. But whatever the case may be, if we're talking about a striking weapon that we're going to actually use and want to be reliable, we don't want this shaft bending, okay? So having a decent thickness and diameter as well as a high quality steel or aluminum is absolutely essential to having something that isn't just a one-time use weapon, okay? And that is what sets something like this apart from the cheap $20, $30, $40 batons that you can buy coming out of China using God knows what. You may defend your life with it. It may save your life, but it's pretty much a one-time use. You're going to bend them, okay? They bend so easily, and once they bend, they're not going to recollapse. No such issue here. You're going to be just fine. This is a very durable material. All right. Now, I mentioned the power safety tip. The reason they do this is exactly for what it sounds like. It's a safety feature, okay? Whenever you're breaking windows or coming into contact with gravel or asphalt or whatever with any baton, it's going to start marring the end of the baton's tip up. And if you have a metal tip, well, great. Now you've got all sorts of little dings and cuts, which can then turn into lacerations if you're having to use the baton in a self-defense situation, okay? Now, that may not sound like a big deal, but the last thing you want is some scumbag who attacked you now trying to sue you for damages because your baton was cutting them up while you were using it to defend yourself. And again, especially if you're breaking windows with it as an active duty officer, you don't want that. A plastic tip, far easier to maintenance, sand off, and get smooth to where it's not going to be a problem. Yeah, there's the window incident issue I mentioned, but hey, like I said, just hold it in reverse and use that heavy ass handle. It'll break the window, absolutely no problem. This particular model has what they call their super grip. It's a thermoplastic elastopolymer, something like that, TPE. Basically, it's a super durable, super comfortable, and very aggressively grippy rubber handle, okay? You're not going to lose or let go of this thing. It's got good traction even whenever it's wet, okay? You're not sliding on this, and you have good real estate. One of the advantages, I think, to a 21 or 22 inch baton is that we don't really lose any any speed with it if we're training with it properly. Okay, if we're holding it back here, we're slower, but we're getting more power. But if we want more speed, you can simply choke up on it, and it's just as maneuverable and just as fast as a 16-inch baton, and now we're getting roughly the same reach as we would with a 16-inch baton. So I think it's kind of a good middle ground, kind of a good compromise, if you will. But I like the handle. It's very comfortable. It works very well. It is a heavier baton at 22 ounces. Okay, I did weigh it off camera. I'm not going to bother bringing in the scale for this. You feel it, okay? And I've carried this on my belt and in my pocket. It's easily concealed both ways if you have the right pants. I've been wearing 511 Taclite Pros, and this easily fits within the upper left or upper right pocket. But your main method of carrying it's going to be in a holder or holster. And this is the official Monadnock belt carry method. This one happens to be the 45-degree swivel. And I'm going to have to recommend against this, okay? And the reason why is, for one, it's expensive at 45 to 50 bucks. But for two, it's fragile. This is my second one. The first one lasted 1 day. Okay, I was carrying the baton on my left side, had the sheath set up for a cross draw, okay, which that's what you get on the 45 degree. On the 360, you obviously would get 360 degrees. But anyways, I was carrying it, and I went to sit down, and here's the thing, it wasn't poking into my gut, anything like that. It just had a little bit of resistance, and it snapped this swivel clear off right there where it meets the body, okay? It is a polycarbonate holder, and it's not the strongest material. Like I said, it broke day one. I had to contact Baton Warehouse, and they did send me a replacement as well as a return label for it, but they were also a little surprised at how quickly it broke. They told me that these are notorious for breaking, but they usually end up lasting about a year, maybe two. So to have one break so quickly in their mind was kind of unheard of. That being said, it's certainly not unheard of if you check the forums or if you check Amazon reviews. These things break all the time. And for how much money they cost, that is just unacceptable to me. Okay, so I'm not even going to spend too much time talking about it because I don't recommend it. It's an expensive, fragile, non-worthwhile carry method. Instead, I would recommend going for something aftermarket. I went with this one. This is a Dotacti nylon holster, and this one also offers 360 degrees of movement. Okay, so just like what many of these do, you can get the same range of movement. It is a Velcro, but a very high quality, very strong Velcro, which also is very quick attach. You could very likely incorporate this into a MOLLE system. Being a nylon-based sheath, this is not going to snap off on you in any shape, way, or form. And what I like about this is if you have a wider collection of batons, I don't know if any of you do, but say you do, this can be used with any of them because we can adjust the tension on the baton's cavity. So we slide this in, we can choose exactly how tight we want this. And that means that this baton is not going to fall out. Meanwhile, it's still very quick to extract. Okay, so this is my preference. This is what I personally use. Dotacti also makes a polycarbonate similar to this that I don't know if it's going to be higher quality or not. A downside to something like this aftermarket holster is going to be that we can't store at least this baton open in this holster. Okay, and there it goes. It didn't lock again. I really need to oil this, but I'm glad I didn't because it demonstrates the problem. But as you can see, that power safety tip is just not going to fit through that opening at the bottom, versus with the official holster, it will. Okay, and the reason why that could be important is, especially if you're in law enforcement, say you've had to use the baton to subdue somebody, and now they're subdued and they're on the ground. You don't want to throw your baton off at the side where it could potentially be picked up and used as a weapon against you by the suspect or by somebody else. And you don't want to spend too much time fiddling with it trying to close it so you can restore it. Well, if you have a holder that holds the baton while open, you can just throw it in your belt and worry about it later. Okay, so that is an upside to the official holder versus this Dotacti. That being said, I'm not a cop. I'm a civilian. That was actually the issue with it not wanting to close. So again, this needs oiled, but I'm not a cop. I'm just a civilian, so that issue doesn't really pertain to me. Gave myself a nice little cut there, by the way. So yeah, wouldn't recommend the official one. I'd recommend going for something aftermarket. It just costs too much, and it's just too damn fragile. How much does this baton cost? The price ranges quite a bit, so I don't want to give us an absolute price tag. But I'd say you're going to pay between $175 and $225 is about where I see these things go. It is an expensive baton, okay? It is certainly not an affordable option. It is not a budget option. We are talking about a very high-end, American-made, European-designed, if I'm not mistaken, serious police tool. And as a result, you're going to pay for it, okay? But if you want something reliable, so long as you're willing to maintain it, reliable, durable, and very capable, this is a hell of a way to go. Another thing to note before I stop the review is with all of these locking batons, you're going to have play, okay? You're going to have a little bit of wobble. You're going to have play in the shaft. It's necessary for the mechanism because it is not friction locked. There's free moving pieces in here. We have to have some movement. My knife guys, consider this kind of similar to a lot of automatics, okay? Especially OTFs versus super tight toleranced folding knives. In order for certain mechanisms to work, we just have to allow for a little bit more movement. It's the same type of situation here. That said, it does not mean it's less reliable. Why is mine failing to lock all the time? Because I have been lazy. Now, there it goes, not wanting to close. Because I have been lazy and I've not been properly lubricating it. After this video, I will do just that, but I'm happy that I haven't because it demonstrates the problem, okay? If you want something you'll have to do less maintenance on, maybe check out an ASP Talon baton or a Minowi baton. If you're looking for something much more affordable than this, but it's still decent, NEX makes a really good baton. But for me, I'm very happy with the Monadnock. It's the one I always wanted, and I'm super happy to have it in my rotation. I will add other batons into my collection because I do like variety, and it would be kind of fun to do some more baton reviews. If you guys are interested in seeing those, just let me know. Definitely cool, definitely something I'm happy to have. And, you know, you're working law enforcement, security, or you're just legally allowed to carry something like this and you want to, give it a go. It's a pretty effective self-defense tool that can be very easily stored on your belt, not draw a lot of attention, and give you some serious reach in a confrontation. Let me know what you guys think. Do you want more of these?